Today you will also learn a new tense. This tense is called the present perfect simple. And in this video you will learn how to form the tense and when you should use it. Pause the video and read Annie's story. What do you think of her life and would you enjoy living like her? I'd like to use some of the sentences from Annie's story to teach the new grammar. You can see the sentences on the slide. What are the verbs in these sentences? Wat zijn de werkwoorden? Pause the video and try to find them. Good job! The verbs are now marked in red. This is a tense you haven't learned yet and it's called the present perfect simple. First, let's take a look at when we use the present perfect simple. I have a couple of questions for you. Take a look at the first sentence. We have lived there for 10 years now. When did the action, so living in the town, take place? In the past, the present, or the future? Exactly. It took place in the past, but it also has a connection to the present because Annie and her family still live in the house. So, we use the present perfect simple to talk about an action in a period of time that started in the past and that is still going on. Here you have a timeline of what happened. So we have lived there for 10 years now. As you can see, living in the house started 10 years ago, but it still has a connection to now because they still live there. Dus de actie begon eigenlijk 10 jaar geleden, maar er is nog een connectie met het heden, want ze wonen er nu nog steeds. En dat is wanneer we de present perfect simple gebruiken, wanneer de acties nog een duidelijke connectie met het heden hebben. Now that you know when to use the present perfect simple, we'll take a look at how to form the tense. We'll start with the positive form. Let's start off once again by highlighting the verbs, de werkwoorden. What are the verbs in these sentences? Pause the video and try to find them. Very good. The verbs are marked in red. You form the positive form of the present perfect simple by using the present simple of the auxiliary verb, het hulpwerkwoord. So in the first sentence, we have lived there for 10 years now. The auxiliary verb is have, and it's in the present simple tense. The auxiliary verb, het hulpwerkwoord, is followed by the past participle, dus het voltooid deelwoord of the full verb. The past participle of a regular verb is the same as a past simple form. Some verbs have an irregular past participle. You have to learn these by heart. Let's use the first sentence to make this a bit more clear. So, we have lived there for 10 years now. This sentence consists of the verbs have, which is the present simple of the auxiliary verb to have, and lived, which is the past participle of the verb to live. Here's an overview of the positive form of the present perfect simple. I have lived, or I've lived here for 10 years. You've lived here for 10 years. He, she, or it has lived here for 10 years. We have lived here for 10 years. You have lived here for 10 years. And they have lived here for 10 years. Of course, both the full form and the short form are correct. Don't forget about the irregular verbs and study them as well. You can find the past participles of the irregular verbs in your grammar summary on pages 23 to 24. Now we'll take a look at how to form the negative form of the present perfect simple. Let's start off once again by highlighting the verbs, de werkwoorden. What are the verbs in these sentences? Dus wat zijn de werkwoorden in deze zinnen? Very good. The verbs are now highlighted in red. Take a look at the verbs. How do you think we form the negative form of the present perfect simple? Correct. So again, we use the present simple of the auxiliary verb, het hulpwerkwoord to have. Then the word is followed by not and the past participle, het voltooid deelwoord of the full verb. Have not or has not is the full form, but you can also use the short versions haven't or hasn't. Mind the spelling of the short form. So again, the present perfect simple is formed, the negative form is formed by the present simple of the auxiliary verb have, followed by not, and the past participle of the full verb. So we have not lived there for 10 years now. Here's an overview of the negative form of the present perfect simple. Don't forget about the irregular verbs and study them as well. I have not, haven't lived here for 10 years. You have not lived here for 10 years. He, she, or it has not or hasn't lived here for 10 years. We have not lived here for 10 years. You have not lived here for 10 years. And they have not lived here for 10 years. Now we'll learn how to form questions using the present perfect simple. Let's start off once again by highlighting the verbs. What are the verbs in these sentences? Pause the video and try to find them. The verbs are now marked in red. Take a look. How do you think questions using the present perfect simple are formed? Very good. To form a question, we use the present simple of the auxiliary verb to have, followed by the past participle of the full verb. Dus we gebruiken hier opnieuw het hulpwerkwoord to have en het voltooid deelwoord van het ander werkwoord. When forming questions, you have to mind the order of the words. This is the correct order. The present simple of the auxiliary to have. So for example, have is the auxiliary in the first sentence. Then the subject, het onderwerp. In the first sentence, that's we. And then the past participle of the full verb. In this case, in the first sentence, it's lived. You can see it very clearly. Here's another overview of how to ask questions. So, have I lived here for 10 years? Have you lived here for 10 years? Has she, he, or it lived here for 10 years? Have we lived here for 10 years? Have you lived here for 10 years? And have they lived here for 10 years? Another typical thing for the present perfect simple is that a lot of the time there are time indicators in the sentences. Can you find the time indicators in these sentences? So the words that refer to the period of time in which the actions happened. Correct. These are all the time indicators. All these time indicators mean at some point time up until now and are used together with the present perfect simple. So if you see these time indicators in a sentence, you should know that the present perfect simple is used. And then I'd like to compare the past simple to the present perfect simple. The past simple, so I hated reading books, She played tennis last Saturday. The train arrived too late and he boiled his egg for 5 minutes. That's the past simple. And the past simple is used to talk about actions that clearly took place in the past and are completely over. There's no connection with the present. How do you form the past simple? You have the subject plus the infinitive of the verb minus 2 plus ed at the end of the verb. Keep in mind that there are a couple of exceptions to the rule. She has always been nice to me. I have never cheated on him. They have lived in Bristol all their lives. Those are examples of the present perfect simple. We use the present perfect simple to talk about an action in a period of time that started in the past and that is still going on. So there's a clear connection with the present. For example, they have lived in Bristol all their lives. That action began in the past, but right now, in the present, they still live in Bristol. So that's the connection. For example, she has always been nice to me. The girl started being nice in the past, but at this moment, she's still being nice. So, again, there's a connection with the present. Then, how do you form the present perfect simple? You have the subject plus the present simple of auxiliary verb to have, plus sometimes there's a time indicator, and plus the past participle of the full verb. Most of the time indicator is placed in front of the past participle of the full verb, but in some cases the time indicator can also be found at the end of the sentence. Here you have a visual representation of the differences between the past simple and the present perfect simple. So the past simple is used when the action is left behind in the past. There's no connection to the present. And on the other side, the present perfect simple is used when there's a clear connection to the present.